Hello, hello. Okay, thank you.
Recording auch. Ah, nee. Ja, okay.
Do you hear me? Fantastic, it's now working. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all. My name is Carlos Ruiz Garbi. I work at the UNFCCC, the Mitigation Division. It's a pleasure to be your master of ceremony today. So we will kick off with the side event titled Enabling Urban Transformative Climate Innovation. It's a pleasure to have wonderful speakers with us today. I'd like to greet Her Highness that is coming to this event and is with us. She will be doing and delivering the speaking notes. And I'd like to also welcome our director at the Mitigation Division at the UNFCCC. He's James Gravert. James, I would like you to deliver the welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm honored to open this event as the director of the Mitigation Division at UNFCCC, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to Her Highness Shama bin Sultan bin Khalifa Al Nahyan, President and CEO of the UAE Independent Climate Change Accelerators, and also to our esteemed panelists who are here today. Today's event, co-hosted by the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub and the Mission Innovations Urban Transitions Mission, in partnership with the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, will explore strategies, challenges, and solution-oriented approaches to urban transformation. The discussion will focus on the expanded innovation space for climate action and the role of the Innovation Hub and UTM can play in facilitating financing and implementing need-based, solution-oriented approaches aligned with the SDGs and objectives of the Paris Agreement. I'll close now, but let me just say I want to reaffirm our commitment to supporting this event and climate mitigation action in cities. It is through collaborative efforts, knowledge sharing, and innovative approaches that we can pave the way for climate-neutral future. Together, we can create a sustainable and resilient world for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was James Graver, the Director of the Mitigation Division at the UNFCCC. And thank you for all the participants and also participants connecting online. Without further ado, I would like to invite Her Highness Sheikha Shama bint Sultan Khalifa Al Nahyan. Welcome. She is invited to the podium, please. The podium is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'd like to thank the team at the UNFCCC Global Innovation Hub for the opportunity to speak today. In preparation for this event, I took a moment to consider that as we pass the halfway mark in 2023, we are moving ever closer to COP28, a significant milestone for the UAE and the world. We collectively know this year's conference will challenge each of us, headlined as a global stocktake on our progress in achieving the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. I am sure each of us in this room has had those moments where we stop and we ask if we're doing enough, if we're doing the right things, if we should do more, or if we should do differently. Each of us on our own can only do so much, of course, so perhaps those moments are better spent asking if we are doing enough together. At its core, we are all impacted by climate change, all challenged by it, driven by it, all responsible for it, and in being with you in this very room, united by it. Despite the sector, region, or cause we are aligned with, we are facing the same direction. We are in the same fight. In being so united by our purpose, we can also be guided by the same philosophies. If we lean on the principle of a united fight against climate change, then our day-to-day lives, how we function and interact in the world are all powerful perspectives in enabling urban transformation. After all, necessity is the mother of invention, and as human beings and conscious members of society, the innovations which we appreciate the most are almost second nature. We share the priorities in enabling urban transformation, building resilience in our cities engaging with technology to find result-led and need-based solutions, embracing what exists and preparing for the future. We are empowered by tangible and effective impacts, inherently creative, resoundingly intuitive. We know the importance of longevity and of adapting to the world and mobilizing a circularity-driven society as opposed to mitigating and stepping back. We also believe in the power of the collective and the importance of catalyzing holistic change. This ambition and ability to convene the voices that can truly create impact sits at the very heart of what we do at the UAE's independent climate change accelerators. For example, one of the climate technologies we are currently working with as they scale their operations is a UAE-based company called Peak Mobility. Committed to driving the petrol to electric transition, Peak Mobility is on a mission to repurpose large-scale vehicle fleets worldwide. However, in order to do so, they require an environment that is conducive to their growth, an environment that requires policy change. Working hand in hand with the team at Peak, the UNFCCC hosted its first policy hack just 2 weeks ago, convening select representatives from key government entities and private sector companies to put forward recommendations that would enable and advance the electric mobility sector in the UAE. This will not only pave the way for Peak Mobility to achieve their ambition, but set the parameters for the manufacturing, repurposing, and adoption of electric vehicles across the board. Imagine when we are united by purpose, what happens when we are united by a challenge. The climate fight is about going with the grain, not against it. The boundless creativity that exists in each of us will do what is needed to win this fight. And if we believe it is necessary to win, then innovation and transformation surely hold the keys to some incredible inventions. Once again, thank you for inviting me to speak today, and I wish you an engaging discussion ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these important words, and we are delighted, Her Highness, to have you with us today, also as the CEO of the UAE Independent Climate Change Accelerator. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite the moderator of the panel that will follow this event. I'd like to invite Georgia Rambelli. She is the Director of Mission Innovation, Urban Transition Mission. Georgia, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for the kind introduction, and good morning also from my side, distinguished delegates, panelists, attendees, Her Royal Highness. Many thanks for your important words that really kick us off in a great discussion today, where we want to really continue exploring, using your words, not only if we are doing enough, not only what we can do differently, but also how we can do more together, really to unlock the potential of innovation based on what we are already doing. So hopefully also learning a little bit more about what is happening in cities right now. My name is Georgia Rambelli. As Carlos just mentioned, I have the pleasure to be part of the Urban Transition Mission as his director. And our mission really looks into mobilizing decision makers across all levels of government to prioritize strong, innovative ways to reach net zero and climate resilience at the urban level. We want to do that through systemic innovation, so across sectors, but also within urban governance. We want to foster capacity building, help to close the gap between the much needed research, the development, the deployment of solutions that are being developed on the ground, brokering already existing solutions, innovative initiatives that are already out there to really support cities on their way to strengthen their climate journey, to future-proof their climate journey, looking to reach the objectives of the Paris Agreement. In particular, we are working with a cohort of cities worldwide. 48 have already joined us in this great journey, and we will have the pleasure of having two of them, Puerto, Montt from Chile and Chefchaouen from Morocco, here on stage with us today. So through our exchange today, we will explore strategies, challenges, solution-oriented approaches that are both dedicated to cities, but also developed directly by cities to really accelerate as much as possible urban transformation. We will focus on the need of continuously growing an innovation space for climate action, a space that should encompass innovation not only from a technological point of view, but also from a regulatory and economic, and of course also a social innovation point of view. Finally, we will hear about the potential of the UNFCCC Global Innovation Hub in particular, and the role that it can play in partnership with the Urban Transition Mission to really deliver on these important objectives for our cities. And we have the pleasure, of course, of having the UN Global Innovation Hub as one of our most important and our long-standing members, I would say, of our Global Innovation Alliance. So this is for us a wonderful opportunity to collaborate and to discuss all together with you today, but also, of course, with our partners. So for the next 45 minutes, you can expect really to learn more about the needs-based approach that we are trying to pursue in supporting our cities worldwide. You can expect to hear more about benefits of implementation of this approach across the board. And now we are going beyond technology to really provide solutions for our community that are not only aligned to the SDGs, but also compatible with the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Of course, this is, as you can imagine, a very tall order, and a lot of different points for discussion will be brought about by our panel. So without any further hesitation, I would really like to start inviting my panelists. And since we are talking about innovation, we are talking about resilience, I would like to ask you to please come also with your name tag, if you don't mind, and join me here on the panel. It should be on your seat at the moment. So I would like to invite Mohamed Sefiani. He's the mayor of Chefchaouen in Morocco. I would like to invite Pablo Llanes, the Director of International Relations from Puerto, Montt, Chile. I would like to invite with me, with great pleasure, Massamba Thioye. He is the Project Executive of the Global Innovation Hub of the UNFCCC. Thank you very much for being with us, Massamba, today. I would like to welcome on stage here Nadia Gleiser. She's the Director of the Leadership Team at Deloitte Sustainability and Climate. Welcome, Nadia. And then last but not the least, I would like to welcome Andy Deacon. He's the co-managing director of the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. Thank you very much to all of you for being with us today. You see, this is already a clear example of cooperation. Now we can continue really working together. So maybe if you allow me, and welcome once again to all of you to our panel, I would like to start by our host here, Massamba. May I ask you to open the floor with us, and in particular, could you tell us a little bit more about how we can promote but also facilitate an effective needs-based approach that is also solution-oriented, of course, and that can help us satisfy the core human needs that our societies and our communities across the world are facing?
Thank you, Georgia, Her Highness, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to those that are in the room. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those that are following us remotely. My name is Massamba Thioye. I'm leading the Global Innovation Hub within the UNFCCC Secretariat in the Mitigation Division. So, cities are extremely important for us for three reasons. cities are very close to their people, and the mission of the Global Innovation Hub is to facilitate, enhance effectiveness of innovation when it is used to support people and the planet. The second reason is that most of the population of the world is living in cities, and most of the time in cities that are vulnerable. So it means that the development of solutions that are relevant to adaptation is important for cities. Finally, the third reason, cities have a very important potential for climate action. The most transformative type of climate action are available to cities. I would like to just share 3 examples. So, climate actions that are based on solutions that can disrupt products and services with negative externality and replace them with alternative products that are satisfying the same need, doing it better or more cost effectively, but that are aligned with the climate and sustainability goal. These are the most transformative type of climate action. A concrete example would be for a city to promote, for example, the use of sustainable wood to replace concrete, cement, and steel. Second type of climate action, also very transformative, is based on solutions that can enhance the efficiency of use of products and services. Think about the use of digital technology, for example, for car sharing and carpooling. And finally, the third category of climate action that are based on solutions that can enhance the circularity of the economy. It was mentioned by Her Highness. These are also very transformative type of solution. We can think about, for example, repurposing old building or refurbishing old building to avoid the construction of new one. But to be able to harness this potential, we need to work on 2 aspects. We need to be able to mobilize existing solutions for their deployment at scale. But we need also to work on the development of the missing one, the solutions that are needed but are not yet available. So on the first aspect, to mobilize existing solutions for their upscale deployment, one important aspect is to move toward integrated approach to innovation. So climate innovation, technology innovation alone will not be able to address the challenge of climate and sustainability. We need to have a more integrated approach where technology innovation can be combined with innovative financial instrument, innovative policy instrument, innovative business model, innovative cooperative approach, because it's all about a radical collaboration among entities, and innovative product for the culture and creative industry, because it's also about changing behavior. We need to have all these leverage points integrated to be able to respond effectively to the challenge of climate and sustainability. Another important instrument that can help upscale deployment is the development of digital platform with a deep search engine and human-assisted AI tool. So the deep search engine for a given demand for climate and sustainability solution will go out and look for existing solution, whereas the AI tool will do the right combination to respond in the most effective manner to the demand. So we need also harmonized standard, and we will need to move from the production-based approach to ESG accounting in cities toward a more consumption-based approach to GHG accounting. And finally, we will need upskilling and reskilling so that nobody is left behind. Now, for the development of the missing solution, we need first ambition. We need ambitious goal and target that can be translated into a demand, a strong demand for climate and sustainability solution. So this will be the pull factor, but it will not be enough. If we want to accelerate innovation for climate and sustainability, we need also a push factor. And the push factor will be open source, it will be education, it will be intellectual capital, because we need to have a situation where all cities can implement long life learning with diverse knowledge available to everybody, everywhere, and at any time. So if we have the pull factor in the form of demand and the push factor in the form of education and availability of diverse knowledge, then we need to implement, and the implementation will require collaboration. So we need, Georgia mentioned systemic innovation, that's very important, and at the heart of systemic innovation, we have collaboration. We need radical collaboration. We need to have entities that are able to co-create and co-evolve. We need to have the possibility to raise systemic awareness and also have metacognitive reframing by all entities that need to challenge the way they are thinking, that need to challenge the way they are interacting with others, and that need to challenge the way that they are acting if we want to have effective collaboration. And we need finally to test, because we are dealing with complex issues for which there are a lot of learning that is required. So regulatory sandbox could be used to experiment, learn from our experience, and learn from each other. Finally, I will conclude saying that collaboration, coming back to collaboration, will be really the key. Collaboration among nations, collaboration within nations between national government and local government for a multi-level type of climate action, collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. If we leverage collaboration and learning, we will then be able to build the cities that are generative and not extractive, cities that are regenerative and not destructive, and more importantly, cities that are empowering for their citizens and not alienating, cities that can provide well-being to their citizens, flourishing life, jobs that are purposeful and that they can undertake with patience. And this will support the vision of peace, security, and human dignity on which the UN is founded. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your comments, and your intervention, Masamba. I think it was great to hear how strongly we can really see cities being protagonists of the solutions that can be brought forward, the change, the transformation that we can deliver in the future, but also, of course, very much the recipients of a lot of the undesirable and threatening impacts that climate change is bringing for us. Thank you also for pointing out some very concrete action and some very concrete levers that we can utilize by engaging different level of government, of course, different sector of our society and our communities directly. And then finally, I think your point on radical collaboration, I hope that the discussion today is yet another opportunity, not only to continue discussing how do we make this radical collaboration happen, but maybe even to inspire some of you to join us in the journey of really implementing this radical collaboration. So we have heard already how much the cities are the protagonists of this endeavor and then this journey. So maybe I would like to go to our cities now and ask a question. Mayor Soufiane Mohammed, and maybe I will start with you. We talked about this vision that we have collectively to transform our society for the future. What is the vision that Chefchaouen has? And not to go too negative already from the beginning, but what type of challenges have you already been encountering in responding to some of these challenging needs that you have ahead of you?
Thank you very much, Georgia. Thank you for inviting me in this very important event. Shukran jazilan. I will try to speak in English. No is poor, no is so good.
It's not true.
So, I am mayor of Chefchaouen. Chefchaouen is the blue city of Morocco, is the intermediate city, and the city will turn to green. So, many years ago, we decided at the local level, with the local politics and civil society, with a participatory approach, that our city will be sustainable and resilient in the future. And we had elaborated Chefchaouen 2030 is our vision, and we prepared that in 2018. And for that, we worked in every sector: water, energy, transportation, and every sector that we manage in our city. And we joined the GCOM, the Global Covenant of Mayors, because for us it's very important to be in one global alliance to support us in many studies, in many things. And we joined the Race to Zero and the Race to Resilience. So many ambition at the local level to contribute in this global transformation in city, because we believe cities are a crucial role to implement the climate agenda, to localize the NDC. But now, how to do it? How to do it is what we are doing, and the cooperation is very important for us. And as said by Masamba, the multi-level climate action is very important. Some examples: we had problems of water, drinking water, and with the multi-level action, now we have, and a few months ago, and we know in Morocco, in many parts of the north of Africa, we have drought with warmer than before, and now we have a project that's securing drinking water in my city. We have, for example, energy. We worked in energy efficiency, and we are preparing one project with UNCDF that are supporting us and national government to have 100% public lighting, sustainable and smart. And we are working in waste management, and thank you to GCOM to support us to have the gap found, and we are working in this project. So the vision for us is clear and shared. No, it's the vision of the mayor. We share it with the elected people, with the civil society. We have implemented many projects, but the challenge is very important, because we have to invest, we have to implement other projects, and why we are the opportunity to be part of the first cities of UTM, Urban Transition Mission, is an honor for us, and the opportunity for us to be among 48 first cities in the world, and now we benefit of this support, technical support, to transform our city and to implement our vision and our climate action plan, because we have our climate action plan.
Thank you very much.
There will be a second round, no?
There will be a second round, indeed. Thank you very much also for the shout out for the Urban Transition Mission and listening to what you were saying about the importance of peer exchange and being in community with other cities. I'm also happy to note that we have now a new call for cities to join us, ideally 250, and we hope to be able to announce that at COP28. So looking forward to enlarge our family. So thank you for that comment as well. But also thank you for really underlying the great potential that there is at the local level to work with the national level and together implement the objectives that we are setting for ourselves around NDCs. And I think the presence of our Royal Highness today is an important signal on the way of COP28, absolutely, also on how we can collaborate even further. I would like maybe to continue our journey across the world and move to you, Pablo, moving to Chile. Can I ask you a little bit about the vision that Puerto Montt has for the future, but also reflect a little bit around the challenges that you see around implementing a solution for the core human needs in your community?
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pablo Yáñez. I'm from Puerto Montt. I'm the International Relations Officer for the city. It's an honor for me to be here, but it's also distressing because the reason we are here is because we are clearly losing a global challenge against climate change. And this makes it not so pleasant to be talking here, but rather necessary and urgent. The microphone seems to be
we can hear you.
Misfunction. It makes it exciting, but also necessary and urgent. In Puerto Montt, we have a particular challenge in that Puerto Montt is currently a carbon positive city, thanks to its abundant forest, evergreen forest cover, its abundant amount of wetlands, and its abundant amount of water bodies and forested hills. Puerto Montt sequesters more emissions than it produces until now, because according to our latest greenhouse gases inventory, by 2030 that won't be the case. We are losing also this challenge, and we are losing it because Puerto Montt is located in a very strategic place. It's the end of continental Chile, or the beginning of the Patagonian region of fjords and channels, which seeps into the last remains of South America towards Antarctica. In fact, Puerto Montt is the main hub for airline communication with the south of Chile. It's also a hub for transport, for terrestrial transport with the rest of the country, and it's also a hub for maritime connection. And all of this has made Puerto Montt a very attractive place to live, a very attractive place to invest, and the city has grown by almost 50% in the last 20 years. It's the city has experienced the biggest growth in population in all of Chile since the turn of the century, and that has created a situation of huge urban sprawl, which has been decimating the forests, the wetlands, the lakes, the hills. So all of which makes Puerto Montt carbon positive is quickly being lost, and it's a vicious cycle because it's being lost to build more highways, more condominiums for people who come and live. So we are losing what helps us in the battle against greenhouse gas emissions, and we are building what creates more greenhouse gas emissions. We are building more highways that enforce the current paradigm of private car ownership. Chile is a country which has just recently achieved some measure of economic stability, and during the last generation, private car ownership has become a symbol of status. Every family has 3 cars. A family of 3 has 3 cars. And that needs to change, but it will only change if we take concrete actions. And that's why our urban planning strategy has laid out the groundwork for the prohibition of the continuing growth of the urban footprint. We are incentivizing the building of new settlements in already densified places, not continue this expansion outwards. We have just finalized a mobility and public spaces investment plan, which is directly connected to this land use plan, and it hopes to create the conditions for investment in intelligent and clean mobility measures, bike lanes, a cable railway system which unites the center of the city with the rest of the city, which would probably reduce the amount of mobile emissions, hopefully 50%, at least 50% wise, because the city is could be very compact, but it's not made compact because there are no other alternatives to car ownership. Public transport is lacking. The weather is inclement, so walking is sometimes not an option. So we need to enforce concrete actions for this to happen. And that's why we are a proud participant in the Urban Transition Mission, in which we are hoping to engage in peer-to-peer knowledge with other cities in the world for us to create a mobility strategy which takes our topography into account, our geography into account, and also arrive at some finance solutions for this to be built. We believe that if we achieve the building of this cable railway system, people will flock to it because it will be a concrete betterment for their quality of life, and therefore mobile emissions will also go down. So this is, in a nutshell, our vision for the future. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you very much, Pablo. And not only a proud member of the Urban Transition Mission, but also one of the first 11 pilots, together with Chefchaouen, among others, of the partnership that we have with the UN Global Innovation Hub. So it's wonderful to find you here and to hear about, of course, how you have a vision to tackle some of the challenges that you have mentioned. And I thank you also for mentioning the urgency of the action, but also in particular the urgency to look into solutions not only for existing cities, but also for growing, rapidly urbanizing, and even new cities, as the IPCC Sixth Assessment Report very rightly mentioned. And this trade-off that we are continuously living in between progresses and processes of urbanization and, of course, the preservation of our ecosystem, of our biodiversity, of our natural resources. So we heard a little bit about how there is an important need to change the way that we are engaging our citizens, the importance of change behavior, and to really accompany our citizens in this journey to understand how we can have more sustainable communities. But part of that journey needs to be done, of course, also in collaboration with the private sector. We need all hands on deck, so I think it's of course, very interesting for us to discuss with you today, Nadia. And I would ask you not only to bring your private sector hat here, but also your 13 years of experience. I believe you are an urban planner by training, but also 13 years of experience is really working with cities, in particular in the transport sector. In what you have learned in this journey, in your professional career, what are the key elements that make this partnership really grow? And how can we deliver innovation on the ground in partnership between public and private, and of course, with the support of the community?
Yes, happy to. I hope you can all hear me. Yes, I've been working with lots of cities in Germany, and to be honest, the problem with the car ownership is very well known for us. And also, I have been a cluster manager for mobility in a region where I was supposed to strengthen the cooperation between public sector, private sector science, as well as the civic society. So what we've learned is that on the one hand, you cannot only focus on the regional level. You need support, you need the framework conditions from the national level in order to create the best possible system. And so, excuse me, so on national level, you need the regulatory instruments. So at least from our experience in Germany, if the national law is not focusing on sustainability and on implementation on site, this will not work. So we really need to, as cities and as stakeholders, to work with national governments to create a regulatory framework that enables us to be more sustainable in the regions. And of course, you also need financial instruments. So whenever you need private investments, the public should ensure via loans or via funding programs or via infrastructure investment funds that this private investment is secure and that this private investment is something that leads to a goal that everyone agrees on, but come back to that later. And Masamba, you said we need digitalization. Of course, we need also a regulatory framework to collect, to save, and to use data and in order to create new services and new solutions, and not only from public, which is at the moment the case, at least in Europe, but also to co-create and use data from private and from public organizations in order to create these new products and services. And then, of course, when we talk about the financing, the banking industry needs some security as well. So they really need to see a goal, and they need to see a clear roadmap with milestones so that they can be sure that their investments and their financial products are well invested, and they get the security to go on with the cooperation. And then when we come down to the regional level, I think this is really important to build up an entity, a new entity. This is something that I've learned. It cannot only be, the city, or cannot only be a private company. It should be someone who is neutral and who is able to collaborate with all these like private, public, and scientific partners. And this is something that really works well from my experience when you find something new that is able to work on a greater goal. And this is the next point. You need a goal, a clear goal that everyone agrees on. So this is important, because if you have a goal that you only set as one organization, then you are in danger that it's not going to be implemented. But if you have like a commission, or if you have some kind of group of stakeholders that also agree to that goal, then you can work with them on a clear roadmap in order to really get to the implementation. Because in the end, you would need those stakeholders, right? You need to track and monitor. We are back to the digitalization part. So really look what is working and allow mistakes to be made. This is something that I've learned. As soon as it gets political, when mistakes are being made, no one is doing anything anymore. So really make this part of the program, that mistakes should be made and that we all learn from each other. And then these networks are really paying off, because then the cities can make an exchange on what they learned in that process and really co-create knowledge. That's really important. And a very nitty-gritty and maybe very small remark, which always works very fine, is when these different organizations that should co-create and that should work together are really in one room together, so that they are full-time work together. And it's not just one of 2 or 6 projects that the people at the public administration or the company are working on, but it's really the focus, and you need to find solutions fast and together. And this is something that really works as well. So yeah, maybe that was very precise, but I think it always helps to get an idea how to implement in the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nadia, for your remarks. And I want to join you in thinking that we need to debunk a little bit this myth that failure is always bad. Failure is part of the cycle of innovation. So I think failing forward and learning from each other is extremely important. So thank you for that comment. And thank you also for bringing up a number of important conditions that we need in order to be able to enable the right innovation at the local level. I think your point on engaging also with the research and academia, so other type of stakeholders, but also to have this open dialogue on a long-standing partnership rather than just a very specific one talk every once in a while. I think that's also very important. And then finally, also for really underlying the importance of regulatory frameworks to really enable and make sure that this space is created and is there to stay so that we can continue on innovation together. So maybe I would like to turn now to Andy, because we heard a lot. We heard a lot about the importance of systemic innovation, how we can bring all the partners together. We heard about commitment from cities and very high-level commitment. And I know you published just a few months ago a new aggregation report that is really showing how cities in the Global Covenant of Mayors are really hitting the road with their commitment, but also with their action. Nonetheless, I believe there are still a lot of challenges, and we heard some of them today. So maybe can I ask you to reflect a little bit maybe on the data question. I know you were part of the coordination of the Summary for Urban Policymakers, and the data question was quite important. And can I also ask you to reflect a little bit on the finance component, which is also quite interrelated, I would say. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, colleagues, and welcome to those joining us online. And thank you to Her Highness for her opening remarks. Very much when it comes to this approach to data access, then at the moment that is not equal and equitable. And there is much more that we as a global network are striving to do to open up access to data to enable assessment of climate risks, action on mitigation, and work on access to energy, all together as pillars of local government and municipal authority action. And the UNFCCC, the work that the Global Innovation Hub, the IPCC and others are doing is helping to make that available. But we've recognized that in some cases there are gaps in translating findings from some of those global reports down to the local level, and hence the work last year to produce a summary for urban policymakers of the IPCC's sixth assessment report. You also mentioned the need for holistic change, and that's also somewhere where some of the access to finance issues can play an important role. And as others have said, translating down to the local level is important. But to come to some of what Nadia said, then certainly when it comes to municipal finance, there's not a lot of room for experimentation. Masamba will have heard me say this before. Mayors lose their jobs if things don't work out with their municipal finance schemes. There is very little room for experimentation. And the more that we can use international platforms, encourage multilateral lending institutions and others to think about opening up more risk capital and risk appetite at the local level, then some of the innovative solutions that we've heard about, whether it is peak mobility, some of the other schemes that we've heard about around the role of nature-based solutions in cities, can be given the opportunity to not only experiment as one-off pilots, but to really then achieve scale. And I think, Georgia, to deal with both of your questions at once, really, then there's something that links both the data and the finance in identifying not only those one-off opportunities, but in how those can then be scaled across to other cities and local governments. That needs both the right national enabling framework, and the Global Covenant's multi-level climate action playbook sets out some good examples of, and there are plenty globally, of where national governments have put enabling measures in place to enable local action to proceed. But we know that that's not universally the case. In many cases, local governments are prevented from directly accessing, in particular, external international sources of potential financing for their schemes. They're required to first obtain the permission of the national government before then going, usually it's debt-based finance, to the lending authority. And we want to move beyond that world. And as part of some of the important debate this year, then are working, to call for reform of many of those institutions to enable more direct subnational access. Now, that doesn't mean that it's totally out of line with or independent from what the national government is doing. All of this should be pulled together and directed towards delivery of nationally determined contributions that make up the Paris Agreement. But again, we know that the minimum requirement to be a signatory of the Global Covenant of Mayors is to go at least as far as your national government's NDC, but 70% of the 12,500 signatory cities in GCOM have made commitments to go further. And this is not coming off the back of, kind of dreams, wishful thinking. There are now close to 7,000 cities that have prepared a detailed climate action plan and are looking for sources of finance to implement that. And one of the areas of work that we want to improve and bring forward is to support both bundling of pipelines of projects together and giving better visibility of those pipelines of projects to potential investors. And again, it comes back to this point about being able to act together, whether that's groups of local governments in one country aggregating their projects and taking that opportunity to the national government, whether it's sectoral financing opportunities and projects of a similar type across multiple jurisdictions coming together and approaching external sources of finance. There are opportunities to do that, but we need the kind of oil in the machine, the grease in the cogs to enable those conversations to happen. And that is where the Urban Transitions Mission, the work of the Global Innovation Hub and other partnerships can come in, is to kind of provide those platforms and enable that increase. I was going to end with one cheeky remark, which is I've now been lucky enough to speak on a panel with a princess. Georgia, last year then also had the chance to then engage Prince Albert II of Monaco's foundation during Ocean Week on some of the work that they're doing around finance for ocean resilience. And then was in New York, an event hosted by Bloomberg Philanthropies jointly with the Earthshot Prize, which has involvement from Prince William. So now my challenge to Masamba, Carlos, and the UNFCCC colleagues is to establish a working group of royals from around the world, all of whom, interestingly, are very interested in work on innovation. So we have a real opportunity, and I look forward to the first meeting of the Royal Working Group of the UNFCCC.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. So, Masamba, I think you have your work cut out, of course, with Andy's request right now. But I think we also together have our work cut out for in terms of how are we going to really tap the full potential of the approach of the UN Global Innovation Hub and this partnership with our cities in the Urban Transition Mission to deliver on some of the innovation that has been pointed out as necessary for the future. So we talked a little bit about, with Andy, about the struggle the cities are having to access finance. We talk about the need to enable better and more streamlined access to funding for subnational governments, but also the importance of really aligning plans coming together to look into how we can implement the NDCs together. And in a period in which we are discussing, of course, the global stocktake, my question to you would be, what do you think is the potential of local governments engaging in this process? I know 76% of the NDCs are already including the intention to use at least one type of voluntary cooperation mechanism. How can we tap this potential? How can we work together? How can local governments really help driving forward the transformation that we need?
Thank you for that question. I think local government cities can play a very critical role in experimenting and providing potential solution that could be then used by parties in the implementation of the outcome of the global stocktake. So the global stocktake probably will have as outcome a gap, because we know that we are off track. But what is the most important thing is how do we act on the outcome that we'll get out of this process. And I think cities can help because cities, some of them have set very ambitious targets. So under the urban transition mission, there are some cities that are aiming to be net zero by 2030. And what they are doing is the right thing to do because this type of objective and target are not based on what is perceived as possible, but more on what is needed. And the gap between the two is what we expect to fill with innovation. And this is precisely what needs to happen also at the global level. We need to encourage parties to make bold commitment, to make ambitious NDCs, and then the gap between these ambitious NDCs based on what is needed in alignment with the 1.5 degree goal and what is currently perceived as possible will be filled with innovation. So currently the Global Innovation Hub of the UNFCCC Secretariat in collaboration with the Urban Transition Mission is experiencing how we could work together with the cities that have been selected by UTM and translate their very ambitious target into demand for climate and sustainability solution, and then upscale deployment and development of these actual solutions. So one thing that is really important in this process is the understanding of the process that need to be followed and the methodological approach that need to be taken to be able to translate needs of solution into actual development and upscale deployment of this solution. So I think the lessons that we learn, that will be learned in this process and the different experimentation that will be undertaken can be extremely useful for parties moving forward in relation to the follow-up action of on the outcome of the global stocktake.
Thank you very much, Masamba, for that. And I think your point on this important gap that needs to be filled between bold commitment and the bold action that needs to be implemented, and the multi-level governance, the cooperation as the key to unlock this full potential is extremely important to really be aligned with our plans, but also with our action to the 1.5 degree goal. And speaking of this gap that will have to be filled with innovation, I would like to go back to our cities again. So again, to Mohammed and to Pablo, to just maybe discuss a little bit. We talked about your engagement in the Global Innovation Hub. What can we expect in terms of your objectives there? What are the core human needs that you're planning to fill together with us? Can you give us a taste?
Thank you, Georgia. Proud that my city is among the first 11 pilot cities in the Global Innovation Hub. We have many needs as a mayor, as the closest institution to citizens. But I can resume that my city has now a growth in tourism last years. My city is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, after after Dubai and after other cities. But no, really, 30% of growth every year, and this is very interesting and give us many challenges in mobility. So one need is mobility. We need sustainable mobility in my city, and we need ecotourism and sustainable tourism. We don't need tourism of thousands of millions of persons, no, but sustainable tourism and ecotourism that respect the culture and the heritage of the city, and we know that there are other needs, but I think that's now very important for us, and that I can say we need the technical assistance. and we see that Urban Transition Mission and the Global Innovation Hub can give us this technical assistance to transform ideas, action plan, and 2 projects that we can implement in our city. We need implementation. Is the first need that we have the plans, we have the studies, but we need implementation, and we don't have resources prepared for that. And we need access to finance. We know that only 10% go to the local. 10% of the climate finance, international finance, to the local. Only 3% of all climate finance goes to Africa. So, and only 20%, perhaps 20% go to adaptation, 80% to mitigation, if numbers is right. So we need that our cities have the responsibility to implement NDC, but we need support, technical support and financial support, and using innovation, because we can copy a solution from country to other countries to adapt, and there are innovative solutions at the local level, and we can share best practice, best ideas, best solutions that we can share together. So that we need, and thank you for supporting us, and we are very optimistic to be one pilot city that have benefit of that and can share experience with other cities in our country, our region, and in the world.
Thank you very much, Mayor Stefiani. Thank you for that. I think your point on the importance of never forgetting the component of adaptation, I think it's essential, especially when most of the vulnerable parts of our world and of our societies are really the ones that are facing the most dire consequences of climate change. So I think that's a very important point. And also thank you very much for reminding us that by working with pilots, we have this great vision to scale up to the rest of the world and to share the love, to share the innovation that we are creating all together. And to conclude, I also would like to quote you, not today, but I had the pleasure to moderate you in other panels before, and one of my favorite quotes from Mayor Stefiani is implementation, implementation, implementation. And I kind of have the feeling that Pablo might feel pretty close to that vision. Pablo, what is your point of view?
Thank you, Georgia. I completely agree with both you and Mr. Mohammed, because implementation is key. And to answer your question, we in Puerto Montt believe that our participation as a pilot city in the Global Innovation Hub will precisely allow us to access better financing possibilities for the projects which we have already have been developing for maybe a decade or so. And Chile has a strategic projects planification which has only achieved up to now a 10% completion status. That means that, as Mohammed already said, finance is not getting it's not getting where it needs to be. It's not getting to citizens, and we are offering our methodology of work, which has been built precisely from a bottom-up perspective, in which citizens have they have thrust forward their ideas into our mobility plan. And what we need right now is to implement these solutions, and we hopefully through the Global Innovation Hub will get two things, and a third one after that. First, capacity building and innovative solutions, and also finance. This will add up and will transform our city, hopefully with the third necessary thing, which is a cultural change. Because many citizens in Chile are very much removed from what we are discussing in this room. They sometimes don't believe that it's even possible for us to confront. Many of them don't even believe in climate change. And those who do believe in climate change, many of them don't believe that anything can be done because They have so much needs, some daily needs that climate change looks so far away from them that we need to have concrete actions in which the global system shows to a common citizen in Puerto Montt that the global system really cares for them, and likewise, so they can engage in a cultural change, of habits change, in which everyone starts thinking also about the global system. But right now, there isn't so much a communication method between this room and what we are talking here and the common citizen in Puerto Montt. And that will only be achieved with, as Mr. Mohammed has already said, implementation of concrete projects in which people start seeing that there's a worldwide commitment for financing solutions which aren't market-oriented but are climate change-oriented. And in that manner, change this cultural status symbols of having car ownership, of not putting forth individual contributions, because we talk about the country contributions, we talk about city contributions, but we also need to talk about each and every one of us and our daily contributions. And what I know in Puerto Montt is that citizens many times don't even think about their contributions because they don't see how it will add up to the city level, to the national level, and to the international level. So there needs to be some sort of conveyor belt in which ideas are passed forward from the bottom, from citizens upwards towards the global financing level. Then the global financing level can actually implement these measures in conjunction with government efforts, in which I know that if our president, Mr. Gabriel Boric, sees that we are actively engaging the global community, then the commitment of Chile to really finance the projects which have already been promised will also increase, because they will say, oh, okay, so maybe we can put forward, we can finance the train, a train that has been promised for decades in Chile, a clean solution to the mobility problems in Chile. And they will say, oh, we will do it because we are seeing that there's also a commitment for the global level to create solutions which are linked to what we can do as a country. And if the country level starts seeing that there's a real conveyor belt among cities, the global level, the national level, then the citizens will also start changing their mind about their daily chores and their daily solutions and their daily alternatives. So that's why it's so important for us to participate in the Global Innovation Hub, because this idea of a conveyor belt from the citizen level to the global level is very innovative per se. So we hopefully can contribute with our little grain of sand to this global challenge, but that's what we can add up to this moment. Thank you, Georgia.
Pablo, also for the passion that you are showing in making really change happen in your community and for other communities around the world. And I think your point around being able to find a collective way forward to use innovation to build trust and cooperation across level and with the community, it's also very much at the core of what the Global Innovation Hub is trying to do, to really make this way forward and use innovation to change the way that things are perceived, to change the way that things are being discussed, so that we can really make the change that it's needed for the future. And we heard about a lot of visions, Nadia, and a lot of concrete plans and a lot of strategies that are ready to just be enabled. So maybe my question to you from a private sector perspective, what do you think are the criteria that can help encouraging the private sector in moving forward with the implementation and with the collaboration in some of these plans that are really, really trying to become projects so very much?
Yes, sure. I would like to add just maybe one remark to what Pablo has said to the role of the Global Innovation Hub, because I think this is really, the key is really to get to the implementation, to really get it going. And from what I've seen in the past at like transnational, international conferences on sustainability, especially on sustainable mobility, was that it's always about the ideas and really nice projects, and it's all very shiny when there are e-mobility or automated driving projects being shown. But I think we really need to exchange on the process. In the end, it's really about how do we organize the process in the cities, and that could be something that the Global Innovation Hub could have a role in find criteria. So this is find criteria where you make the cities comparable with each other, to really see what are the national framework conditions in these cities. So for political, economic, from a regulatory point of view, then look at the topics that you're working on: mobility, energy, education, and so on, and then find comparable cities where you can really exchange on the process. How do you set up like project management office? How do you set up a governance structure? How do you include the regional stakeholders? How do you work with data? So this could be something that where an international global exchange on these experiences in the projects can really have an added value. And if you find a way to implement this process on the scale, then you can also attract the private sector. So because the private sector really needs to see a clear goal, it needs to be the goal and the milestones towards it. The roadmap needs to be reliable, so that they really have the security when they invest in new infrastructure and new services. And of course, within this process in the cities, the private sector should always be included. And then I'm coming back to my cluster of the regional innovation cluster, where not only the public and scientific partners and administration need to work together, but the private sector should have a key role, and they should work as equally treated stakeholders in this process. I think this would be really key.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for that. And I think your point on really making sure that we are creating a process that can also allow for this comparability so that we can maximize the impact of the solutions that we are defining together is extremely important. Masamba, you referred to standardization, among others, earlier. So I think it's very much in the thoughts, but also this idea of finding these ways to create added value for all the stakeholders that are part of this process so that we can continue working together. So we are almost at the end of our panel, and Masamba, I know that I'm supposed to give the conclusions, and I will, but I also would like to hear a reaction from you of all, what has been said by the panel. But before I go to you, Andy, I have a question for you as well. Now, we discussed quite a bit about the ways that we can entice the cooperation with the private sector, the difficulty that we have in setting up access to finance, but also in really move on to implementation. And I know among other activities that the Global Covenant of Mayors does, there is also the support and the implementation of the city's Climate Gap Fund that is specifically trying to help these cities that have a plan to get a project that becomes interesting, appealing, bankable, and ready to go for implementation. Can you share with us some of the lessons learned and maybe focus a little bit also on the aggregation point that was raised by Nadia of bringing together these comparable needs to find also useful and scalable solutions?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Georgia. Complex question. But yes, I'll start by saying if there are municipal or city representatives in the room, then there are some very useful online resources that are available if you're looking for support to develop projects for investment. So I should mention the Cities Climate Finance Leadership Alliance Project Preparation Resource Directory that enables you to search by country, by sector, and to see if there is project preparation support that might be available. And also then when it comes to also going beyond project preparation and into implementation, then the NDC partnership has a climate funds explorer. And both of those are useful tools that the Urban Transitions Mission Center, that's supporting your work through the mission itself, will then start to aggregate and make available to the cohort of cities that are coming on stream. For GAP Fund, there was a needs survey of Global Covenant of Mayor Cities back in 2018-19 that identified that one of the key things was missing was effectively very early stage pre-feasibility funding. Again, many cities were starting to develop citywide climate action plans, but then there wasn't funding available to take the next step, which is to move from saying, we know we need to generate 32% of renewable energy by 2035 to where do I site this solar panel, wind turbine, heat pump, battery storage facility, or whatever else. And making that move from a citywide plan to a specifically kind of bankable project is quite a step. As anyone who's tried to take out a loan for a car, some repairs to their house or anything else will know, conversations with your bank manager can sometimes be a little uncomfortable. And that goes equally for citywide municipal projects as it does for personal improvement ones as well. And so there is now support that's available thanks to donor funding from Germany and Luxembourg and work by implementing agencies from the World Bank, AIIB and GIZ in partnership with a group of the city networks on the GAP Fund. And a number of projects that are starting to move forward, including work in Chefchaouen on waste management, work elsewhere that's addressing kind of urban neighborhood level greening and improvement projects, and work elsewhere that's specifically addressing renewable energy generation. What that support is doing is helping to build the business case or improve the business model for that investment. For example, to undertake technology options appraisal to work out which solutions are most appropriate for the local context and can bring the most benefit to the local community. And in addition to doing that, it is helping to link cities together to be able to exchange with one another, as Mayor Safiani and Pablo have said, and then also to then kind of start to link those projects with potential end investors and advance them towards investment. That's just one. We need many, many more similar facilities to serve the fantastic needs that are being surfaced by the Innovation Hub, by the mission and elsewhere, but very happy to continue conversations about how we do that.
Thank you very much. And then we are already 1 minute over time, but if you have a quick reaction, Masamba, I would like to hear from you.
No, very quickly. First of all, the advice of Andy is well taken for the working group of Royal. We will explore how to implement that. Yeah, and on implementation, fully agree that we need implementation, but what does it mean in practice? It means that we need to find a way to translate the need expressed by cities into concrete solution deployed on the ground. It's not enough to develop the solution. It has to be developed and deployed. And this is why this integrated approach is important, because most of the time, the barrier that we are facing, we have the right technology, but we do not have the right policy instrument or the regulatory framework. We have the right technology, but we do not have finance. It is not accessible. So it's only if you have a holistic approach where all these different instruments are combined that we can have something successful. And this is why the Systemic Innovation Workshop that the Global Innovation Hub is organizing, with the participation of financial venture capital firm, public finance, private finance, philanthropists, the research center is extremely important. Finally, one important thing is the alignment between what is happening at the national level and what is happening at the global level. We need to have longer-term low-emission development strategies that are informing both the NDCs, but also the climate strategy of the local government, so that we have full alignment.
Thank you very, very much. And to conclude, very much like the UNFCCC, I took 3 C's from this discussion. The first one is cooperation. We need cooperation across sector. We need cooperation across levels so that we can really foster the innovation that we've been discussing here today across the board. We need co-creation, so really working also from the bottom up with our cities, with everyone around the table to identify the right solutions that are still needed, and continuation, because this is just the beginning of our conversation. And I want to thank very much on behalf of both the Urban Transition Mission and, of course, of the Global Innovation Hub for your attention, your participation, the fantastic panel that I have here with me. Thank you, Your Highness, for being with us. It was wonderful to have you with us. And I want to really thank everyone for your time, and please be in touch. We want to innovate together with you.
Yes, that would be